various misgivings. Various? I only carried 4 passengers that night, I swear it. But, well, I, for one, was told I had to pay 5p for the bus. Suspicious, mate. He fiddled us on the fare, he did. And then I saw that blood-curdling sight as well. It's all too much. I tell you, I saw McGilded stabbing that man. Everything I said before stands. Oh, yes. Yes, he stabbed him. Yes, he did. I think so, yes. Now I suspect all 3 of you. Just because it feels like you've changed your tune. What are you hiding? Counsel, make sense of this for me, please. The phantom 5th passenger conjured into existence by my learned Eastern friend never existed. Or he did, and they're covering for him. The confusion has arisen from the coachman's sly little... Cozenage?
Cozenage.
Yeah, cozenage. The practice of deception. Or trickery. Interesting. Beppo, explain yourself. I'm terribly sorry, Guildmaster. The Guild's fare is 4p across the board. You know that. Am I to understand that you've been overcharging our passengers by a penny a fare? It's so cold, and the last run of the day is always half empty. You have been dishonest, coachman. I'm sorry. You're a disgrace, Beppo. A disgrace. And your selfish actions have brought dishonor on the entire guild. If I may, sir. I had to pay 10p. I think it's 10p. I'm trying to remember how they used to say it, like, because it used to be 2p, used to be 2p. So I paid 10p on the bus just last week. What? 4 passengers at 5p each is, yes, 20p. I've done the arithmetic 10 times already, but I just can't make the result come out differently. No, that figures. Well, it would appear that one of the aforementioned misgivings has already been explained. So, counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, if you please. We've already had the pleasure of a protracted summation examination today. I see you intend to continue the parlor games. Absolutely. I think. Cross-examination. Various misgivings. I only carried 4 passengers that night, I swear it, but Hold it! Pressing everything here. So there were only 4 passengers on your carriage, but you didn't charge them the standard 4p fare. Is that right? See, I don't see anybody reacting. Keep an eye on him. It's impossible to make the last run of the day pay. So it seems the same, doesn't it? I was so cold, it was all I could do to stop myself passing out. Get it. I'm getting chilblains? Alright. Just listening to you? It was terrible. So I wanted to give myself a pat on the back for even keeping the bus running. Does a dedicated coachman deserve an extra penny per passenger? You're digging a deeper hole for yourself here. If only there had been a 5th passenger on the omnibus that night, we would have had another suspect. Well, I, for one, was told I had to pay 5p for the bus. Hold it! Does that mean everyone on board that night paid 5p instead of 4? Well, I paid 5p too, sir. And I just told you that I did. A flat fare of 5p across the board. It's not something to be proud of. The so-called discrepancy my learned friend identified was nothing of the sort. Much like the phantom killer you so desperately needed, it's gone. Dead. And buried. I'd have been happy if it had ever existed in the first place. He fiddled us on the fair, he did. And then I saw that blood-curdling sight as well. It's all too much.
Hold it!
This blood-curdling sight. You mean the murder, I presume? Yes, sir. Loathsome sight. No one should have to witness the horror in the eyes of a man the moment his life is taken. Oh, well, not exactly, sir. I mean, I didn't actually see the exact moment the gent was stabbed. Good gracious, really? We have another witness who did, however. The banker has already testified to it. Mr. First didn't actually see the point at which the victim was killed. It may turn out to be very significant. Yeah, I'm already suspicious of one certain person in this group. You, with one of your statements. I had the banker, gent next to me, take a sharp intake of breath, see? That's when I looked through the glass. That's when I saw the horrible blade poking out from his belly, all covered in blood. Every time I see a knife now, I can't help screaming, even when I'm eating. I tell you, I saw McGilded stabbing that man. Everything I said before stands.
Hold it!
So you saw the defendant, Mr. McGilded, stabbing the victim, Mr. Mason, who was sitting next to him? That's what I said, isn't it? It's bothering me before this was. But just a brief moment, he hesitated before answering the question. Anyway, there was only the two of them inside the carriage, wasn't there? Yes, you're asserting that. There's been much talk of a fifth passenger, but as yet zero evidence. Then what are we wasting all this time for, eh? It's black and white. Man's guilty. Something about Mr. Fairplay's testimony just jars with me. Wish I could work out what it was. Let's have a look through that. Because I was thinking this was the odd one out. Because oh yes, he stabbed him. Yes, he did. I think so, yes. How do you, like, you don't really know because you were driving the carriage. So where are we? Tell you I saw Mr. McGilded stabbing the man. Everything I said before stands. What did you say before? That's what I need to remember. And two of them inside the carriage, wasn't there? I'm wasting time for it. It's because it's like he didn't see, like that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he didn't see Mr. McGilded. But yeah, this one I'm very much thinking like, you don't know that because you're driving the carriage.
Hold it!
Earlier, you testified that you saw the moment when the defendant allegedly stabbed the victim, didn't you? Oh yes, that's right. You said that the victim was on the floor and described the assailant holding the knife in an ice-pick grip. I suppose? I might have, yes, put the cart before the horse, maybe? What's this? Well, I'm quite sure about most of it. I was driving the horses when I heard a scream from the seats on the roof deck. Oh, I expect that was me, sir. And then when I turned around, yes, I saw her through the skylight. The gentleman was on the floor and the knife was sticking up out of his midriff. That's right, yes, and the fellow holding the handle was the famous man, yes. So, in short, you didn't see the moment when the victim was actually stabbed at all. Yeah, that's the bit that's sort of like, I really thought I did, but when I go over it again in my head, no, I suppose I didn't actually see the precise moment of the stabbing, did I?
Truth!
You're right there. Like, You okay? Like, mate, you alright? Hey, what are you doing?
Excuse me.
Excuse me. Do you have something to say about that, Mr. Fairplay? Now you listen to me. I know what you're thinking. You didn't really see the exact moment a fellow was stabbed. What are the chances of that? Huh? Are you asking me or telling me? He's getting flustered. I might be able to extract some information from him if I answer him cleverly. But do you just happen to see the exact moment the crime was committed? Some days are like that. No chance, I don't think he could, not from the angles you'd be sitting. Well, it is a little hard to believe, certainly. Unless you spend your time peeping through a skylight on top of an omnibus, that is. Peeping? I'm a respectable city banker, I'll have you know. And I know what I saw. I remember it as clear as a ballet day. It was a grim scene, I don't mind telling you. Thank you, Mr. Fairplay. Oh, excuse me if I was getting a little hot under the collar there, my lord. I would ask you to supplement your testimony with a clear statement about what exactly you saw. Oh, I can do that all right. I'll tell you just how grim it was. You think I'd forget the sight of those blood-soaked hands after the butcher stabbed them? I mean, come on, mate. Straight away, like, boom.
Objection!
It's like, you go straight in with the gloves there. Like, what else would you do at that point? Blood-soaked hands. Well, I admit that soaked might have been laying it on a little thick, but anyway, there was definitely blood all over them. Both of them were covered in it. Well, I'm very sorry to disagree, Mr. Fairplay, but that's more than a little peculiar. What? Here are the gloves worn by the defendant, Mr. McGilded, on the night in question. Oh, yes, right. There certainly does appear to be a sizable dark-coloured stain there. But, as I'm sure you can clearly see, it's only on the right-hand glove. Ah, don't chew it. In short, Mr. Fairplay, your testimony is inconsistent. But no, that can't be right. So you're the liar here, then? Stop chewing on it, mate. That's right. You're quite clear about it. You said, it was in both hands. Mr. Fairplay, if your last statement was a lie, it calls your entire testimony into question. You say you saw the moment the victim was stabbed, but is that really the truth?
Objection!
It was a simple mistake. You can't justify accusing this man of lying. Yes, it wasn't both hands, it was only one, but the fact remains. The victim's blood was on the accused.
Objection!
No, Mr. Fairplay categorically stated that he saw blood all over both hands. Which means there's a strong possibility that this witness was deliberately trying to mislead the court. Why? I'm a city banker, for pity's sake. My word should be the gold standard. I'm a gentleman, not some gutter snipe. Upstanding members of society don't prevaricate? He's claiming to have no reason to lie. Is that really the case? Mr. Naruhodo? If we had some evidence to explain why Mr. Fairplay might be lying, it could turn the tide in this trial completely. Something to show this man has a compelling reason to lie in his testimony. Well, the only thing I can think of is that sort of thing like, why would everyone be working against Mr. McGilded? Essentially. Why? And it all comes down to, who's in debt? Let's have a look. This portfolio must contain all sorts of secrets of London's gentry. Oh dear, do you really think we ought to look inside? Well, it's not as though we know any of London's gentry personally, is it? Apart from our great detective friend, perhaps. Actually, I wonder. I assure you we will not find Mr. Schlome's name inside. Well, let's see what we find. Gosh, it's crammed full of gentlemen's names, isn't it? Well, I suppose they're probably not all gentlemen at all, are they? After all, not everyone in this country is well off. Ah, goodness! What is it? Look at this. Do you see the name here? Bruce Fairplay. There we go. Should that mean something to me? It sounds strangely familiar, actually. Bruce Fairplay, the witness testifying at this very moment. Oh yes, of course, the banker. Why is his name in here? Ah, borrowed 20 guineas, did he? And look, the repayment date is fast approaching. It's possible that this is just a coincidence, of course. But this could be very useful information. The details of the debtor's ledger have been updated in the court record. Is it just him, though? I thought it was going to be all of them. This thing, I thought it was going to be everyone on the carriage. And that was going to be the significant thing. It's crammed full of gentlemen's names, isn't it? Yeah. I thought it was going to be like going towards like a big conspiracy where it was everyone was involved in some kind of debt situation. That's from my thought process off. Interesting. I have evidence. My lord. Yes, counsel? The defense is ready to present evidence. By Jove. Are you sure? Yes, evidence that will clearly demonstrate why Mr. Fairplay had reason to lie in his testimony. Pwah! Very well. I hereby call on the defense to present its evidence. The evidence that demonstrates a motive for the witness's alleged deception of the court.
Take that!
This is a list of the debtors who owe money to Mr. McGildet. Yes, a list of innocent victims crippled by the accused's extortion. The point is, among the names of these debtors is your name, Mr. Bruce Fairplay. What? Mr. Fairplay, are you currently indebted financially to the accused? No, well, it's barely worthy of being called a debt. According to this ledger, you owe 20 guineas. Not an inconsiderable sum of money, wouldn't you say? Well, what of it? Let's suppose Mr. McGildet were to be found guilty of moider. What would become of your debt in that case? These documents state that the loan agreement is forged between two individual parties. Therefore, were the creditor, the defendant here, to be sentenced to a capital punishment, all outstanding debts which were owed to him would be annulled. They would cease to exist. Cease to exist? Mr. Fairplay, is it not the case that you claimed in your testimony to have seen something you never in fact saw? In a devious attempt to annul your debt of 20 guineas to the defendant? Gah. As such, yes, quite. Oh my. He guard everywhere. Oda. Mr. Bruce Fairplay. Yes, my lord? Let me ask you again. And be aware that your answer may have most serious implications upon your future, sir. Did you or did you not see the precise moment in time at which the defendant is alleged to have thrust a knife into the victim? Your silence speaks volumes. You did not tell the truth in your testimony. All right. Now let's not make a melodrama out of this. Perhaps I did overstate the truth a pinch. A pinch. but it makes no difference. I definitely remember seeing blood on Mr. McGillicud's hands, both of them.
Objection!
And yet, only one of the defendant's gloves, which we have here as evidence, is stained. So you keep saying. Alright, why is he all the dotting? I wonder if I might be allowed to speak, sir. Go ahead, Mr. First. Well, the thing is, I think I remember seeing it myself, as it happens. Seeing what? The blood, sir, on the assailant's hands? I think, yes. I'm almost sure that it was on both of his hands, not just one. Where? What? But again, how to explain... How do we explain the gloves, then? That doesn't make sense. That's the bit that needs explaining there, then. The only possibility is what we want to try and assert, that there was another person. It would appear that we're going to need further testimony from all you witnesses. This time, I would like to know precisely what you did and what you did not see. Do I make myself perfectly clear? Yes. Mr. Naruhodo, this is good news for Britain. G-O-O-D-N-E-W-S. The course of the trial seems to have slightly shifted at last. Yes. I might finally have a chance to turn things around here. Nah. Surely not. Witness testimony. What the witnesses really saw. There was blood on both hands of the assailant. I sincerely and distinctly remember that. However, I suppose you might say that I didn't see the exact moment the stabbing transpired. That matters. I remember seeing the knife, and I remember seeing both the attacker's hands with blood on them. I didn't actually see anything myself, no. Not until I heard that scream. Anyway, scream. The fact remains, there can't have been anyone else inside that carriage, or we would all have seen. Scream. Well, lo and behold, in truth of fact, not one of you all was witness to the crucial moment the crime was perpetrated. I apologize, my lord, but honestly... there was no one else inside that carriage, and the man's hands were covered in blood. Not much incriminating evidence is tantamount to say we saw the man do it. That's really not what testimony is about. Let us examine the interior of the omnibus once more. The victim's fresh blood is clearly visible on the seat, corroborating the witness's accounts. In other words, there is no substantial nor significant change in the facts of the case. Very well. Your cross-examination, please, counsel. Yes, my lord. Got two things I'm thinking here. What this witnesses really saw is that I'm starting to think of going back to like how I do the previous Ace Attorneys, where it's like I pursue things where it's like I think there's something going on. Because it was very much like I came into this game being careful because I didn't know sort of like if there was any changes to the rules or anything like that, and I just had to be careful. But now we're further into the third case. I think maybe we can go back to me pursuing like logic like I used to in the other ones. And there's two statements I find a bit dodgy. There was blood on both hands of the assailant. I sincerely and distinctly remember that. Okay. However, I suppose you might say that I didn't see the exact moment the stabbing transpired, if that matters. I remember seeing the knife, and I remember seeing both of the attacker's hands with blood on them. It's here I start to question it. I didn't actually see anything myself, no, not until I heard that scream. What scream?
Hold it!
You didn't see anything? Oh yes, sir, that is to say, no, sir, I didn't. Very sorry about what I said before, sir. Very sorry, yes. it was very wrong of me to make up stories and say I saw him stab the man. Wouldn't you agree, sir? I know what you're insinuating, but I certainly wasn't making up stories. Still, to say you saw nothing isn't right either, is it? No, sir, I saw nothing at all. Mr. Beppo, you were driving your horses. At the very least, you must have enjoyed a good view of London streets, no? The scream. Ryu, ask about the scream. Oh, please, you didn't even see that? It was so cold that night, you see. It's all I could do to keep from passing out, sir. Yes, my head was fairly frozen solid. Sorry to say, sir. It would seem prudent to avoid travel on the last omnibus service of London's cold winter night. Beppo. Aye. Ask about the scream. That's the bit I wanted to investigate, but alright. Anyway, the fact remains there can't have been anyone else inside the carriage, or we would have all seen. It's the scene bit here for me, because it's very much like if we go back into the omnibus ourselves, like from what, like you could from this, like where were they sitting? That's my question. You can see into it, that's for sure. Yes, and there's a lamp in the enclosed cabin. Yeah, we would have been able to see clearly. It's like, where was the blood? The blood's there, so it's like, where were you sitting? That's the question. I like there's actually like a bum mark and a foot mark. It's like, yeah, they would be worn down because they would be sitting there for quite a while. It's like, you would have gotten on. And I assume, like, it's... Only one of you would have been able to see these back seats if you were sitting here. It's like, this thing, if you both saw the body, you had to have been sitting on this seat. And if you're sitting on this seat, you're not going to see who's below you in this bit, so you can't have seen everything in there. So anyway, the fact remains there can't have been anyone else inside that carriage, or we would have all seen. You potentially wouldn't have. Because that's the thing, it's like, it's from the angles, like, maybe Beppo would have saw someone else. But it's that case of, like, at the time, the murder he wouldn't have. It's like, it's that's what I feel like what's going on here. So let's press this. And everything you saw of the incident was through the skylight on the roof of the omnibus? That's right. It was fiercely cold that night, but the glass wasn't frosted over. Okay. Oh yes, I remember I was shivering. It was so bitter. Rather begs the question of why the pair of you were sitting on the roof deck in the first place. That's exactly what I was thinking. Get inside, you idiots. Well, I don't know about this young fellow, but I couldn't enter the cabin. Oh? Why not? It was locked from the inside. I tried knocking, but no one opened the door. It was locked. That's right. It's a public bus service, but pity's sake. That's not what I call fair play. Yes, I had exactly the same experience. I tried knocking, but the gent inside just gestured at me to clear it off. So I had no choice but to climb up onto the roof deck and look down longingly into the warm cabin below. And I can assure you I wasn't looking down, I was glaring long and hard. That's precisely why I can tell you with absolute confidence that if there was anyone else at all in that cabin, I would have noticed. Unequivocal, I would say. I'm not sure about these two witnesses. Could they really have seen everything inside the cabin through the skylight? They might not have been able to. Allow me to confirm one thing, Mr. Fairplay. You were riding this omnibus and witnessed the events in the cabin through the skylight and the floor on the upper deck. Is that right? That's right. Yes? In that case, there is a portion of the cabin interior that would have been out of sight from you. What? Golly, really? Obviously, at this stage, we can't say for sure. But the possibility cannot be denied. That at the time of the incident, there could have been another passenger in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus.
Objection!
Enough hypothetical meandering, my Nipponese friend. The prosecution demands that you substantiate your claims. After all, the scene of the crime is here, in the flesh. Flesh? Very well, I will uphold the prosecution's demand. You will identify the area in this cross-examination plan of the omnibus. Oh, where exactly in the omnibus are you suggesting that this potential extra passenger could have been situated? Well, there. Does it not? Just wondering, like, I don't want to press it in the wrong places again, so it's like, it's gotta be here, right?
Take that!
It's the bit that made sense to me. Both rows of seats on the roof facing the direction of travel, whereas the seats in the enclosed cabin face each other, which means the invisible part of the cabin which passengers on the roof deck can see through the skylight is as I've drawn here. Ah. That's right, my lord. As you can see, the seat opposite the one on which the victim and his attacker were sitting is obscured from view. In other words, if someone had been sitting on that seat, it's quite possible that these witnesses would have been completely unaware of it. God! That is quite yes.
Objection!
It's quite possible some phantom was sitting there. You Nipponese have a forbidding habit of obscuring the truth of ambiguity. Look who's talking, mate. I concur with the prosecution's rejoinder. In a British court of law, evidence is paramount. I cannot entertain this conjecture, counsel. What? I mean, what? This is unless you're able to put a name to this mysterious passenger to whom you allude. Can you, Mr. Naruhodo? I honestly don't know. Who could it have been? Well, it's quite simple. Who could have been in the other seat, which was out of sight from the witness on the roof deck? I have an inkling. I understand, my lord. The defense would like to put forward a name. You broke your glass. You are a fool. That response was a desperate attempt by a man who has no notion of his own limitations. A toast to hard lessons not yet learnt. Let us not delay, counsel. The defense is still to name the passenger in the other seat. Bob. This could be it. This could be the chance I've been waiting for to turn the trial in my favor. On that night, on the night of the moider, the person occupying the seat in the omnibus cabin that was obscured from the view was Magnus McGilded. Because it's like, if we try and claim that he was out of sight, then that proves the assertion, the assumption that there was someone else in the cabin who had his hands covered in blood. Is there anything that makes sense to me?
Take that!
The passenger in the enclosed cabin that the witness on the roof deck failed to see has to have been Mr. Magnus McGilded. Mr. McGilded? What are you talking about, counsel? That's the name of the defendant. It is, isn't it? I'm not sure.
Objection!
If I desecrate this chamber by splashing my hallowed chalice, again, do forgive the discourtesy. Lord Van Zykes. People talk of those tiny island nations in the Far East as having a learning and culture of their own. But I see they use the terms ill-advisedly. What are you trying to say? Let me explain in terms that even a student of an artless backwater such as yourself might understand. When the bloody scene unfolded, the victim and his assailant were sitting side by side. Multiple witnesses have attested to the fact. It's the very premise on which this case is built.
Objection!
But that premise may be wrong. What? If the victim really was sitting beside Mr. McGilded, it creates an inconsistency that can't be reconciled in any way. What inconsistency, counsel? The defendant's gloves, my lord. Both witnesses made the same testimony. They claimed that there was blood on both hands of the person sitting next to the victim.
Objection!
Yet, we know the truth to be otherwise. Only one glove bears the gory remains.
Objection!
The point is, even in the face of this irrefutable evidence, both witnesses have maintained their stance. Yes, their testimony remains unchanged. Exactly. They both adamantly swear that they clearly remember seeing blood on both hands of the assailant. In short, their memory of events is correct, and their testimony reveals the truth. It was somebody else sitting beside the victim that night, a third party we have yet to identify. And the victim's blood was on the passenger's hands. Both of them.
Objection!
And who was this third party? Obviously, the true culprit. Extraordinary. It's quite extraordinary. What exactly are you postulating?
Objection!
The defense's postulation is just that. Nothing more than conjecture. The witnesses have clearly stated that they saw the accused.
Objection!
But when elaborating on his testimony, Mr. Fairplay said the two of them were wearing hats, and I couldn't exactly make out their faces. Yes. The tops of their heads were obscured by the roof. I could see the rest of them, though. Yes, that's right. Both gents were most certainly hatted. Hatters do tend to notice such things, sir. And what particular styles of hat did the two gentlemen sport, Mr. First? I'm afraid I don't remember. And you call yourself a hatter? The style of hat makes no difference. There was no third passenger in that cabin. How can you be so sure? Because if there had been, the accused, Mr. McGilded, would undoubtedly have offered to dispose the fact. Unless, that is, you are proposing an even more preposterous explanation? That the accused failed even to notice the presence of the true culprit in the very cabin in which he travelled. Ah, it's quite preposterous, yes. He's right. If there was another person travelling in the enclosed cabin in the omnibus, it's inconceivable that Mr. McGilded would have been unaware of it, unless he was fast asleep. Order! There is clearly a simple solution to this problem. Bring the accused, Mr. McGilded, to the stand. What say you, counsel? The prosecution objects, my lord. On what grounds? As a suspect, he will have already made a full statement to the police. But what if there's some reason why he's unable to speak freely? Magnus McGilded is no uneducated ruffian. If it indeed turns out the man has been withholding information, you can be sure it will have been a most deliberate act. Counsel for the defense, what is your opinion? My lord? Should we ask Mr. McGilded to testify or not? Well, we will demand his testimony in the next part. Ta-ta for now.